Okay, so at the top of your first clean page in the social studies section, make sure it is the first clean page, not some random page. Make sure you're in the social studies section. You're going to title your notes, Chapter 6, Lesson 1, which is called Geography of the Southeast, and then you should have today's date, April 19th, 2021. And then put your notebook under your textbook. And open to page 164. Should be open to page 164. Open to page 164. Please open to page 164. This chapter is all about the Southeast. Okay, I still see so many people not open to page 164. Because you got ahead. And you opened up to the first page of chapter 6, lesson 1. Well, if you don't know what we're talking about by the states of the Southeast, is that lesson going to make that much sense to you? No. So you should be on page 164 for the 300th time. Let's look. We see the states that this textbook considers parts of the Southeast. We have the Atlantic coast states, which are indicated by that like kind of reddish orange color. Please make sure that you're looking at the key. We have the Gulf Coast states that are indicated by that really light orange color. And then we have the inland South states, which are indicated by that normal orange color. What are the Atlantic coast states? Carla?
The Atlantic coast state and the Gulf Coast.
Nope, I'm just asking about the Atlantic coast states. What states are Atlantic coast states?
Georgia.
Georgia?
I'm tripping on a word.
Well, you're not looking in the right place because the Atlantic coast states are that reddish orange color. And right now you're looking at ones that are light orange or regular orange. Who can help her out? Georgia? Zadie?
South Carolina.
South Carolina?
North Carolina.
North Carolina?
And Virginia.
Virginia?
Maryland.
Maryland. Any others? So Carla, you're looking, that's not a state. That's the Appalachian Mountains. See? Follow. You're looking at this color. So we have 5 Atlantic coast states. Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, and Maryland. Why do you think they're considered Atlantic coast states? We might just spend all day on this map, now that I think about it. I think that might be a better idea. We'll see. We'll see how much time we have. Mason, why are they called Atlantic coast states?
Because all the states are by the Atlantic Ocean.
They're all bordered on the east by the Atlantic coast. Very good. Or by the Atlantic Ocean. And remember, the coast is land by an ocean. What about the Gulf Coast states? What are the Gulf Coast states? Aaron.
Mississippi.
Mississippi.
Alabama.
Louisiana. Florida. Bless you. Any others, or is that it? That's it. So there's 4 Gulf Coast states: Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida. Why do you think they're called the Gulf Coast states? Zadie?
Because they're all bordering the Gulf of Mexico.
Because they are all along the border of the Gulf of Mexico. But wait a second, Florida also is bordered by the Atlantic Ocean. Why do you think they chose to consider Florida a Gulf Coast state instead of an Atlantic Coast state? Why do you think? Zari?
I think because part of it is near it. Most of it is near near Mexico.
Not Mexico, but the
Border of Mexico.
not the border of Mexico. Cullen?
The Gulf of Mexico.
Most of Florida's coast is along the Gulf of Mexico. Is that what you were going to say, Zadie? So you can see, if you put your finger at the top of Florida on the Atlantic coast, so find the top of Florida on the Atlantic coast, all the way down to where the Florida Keys are. That is how long the Atlantic border of Florida is. But then if you keep your finger down by the down by the Florida Keys, but then move your finger up and over past Tallahassee to this border along the Gulf of Mexico, look how much longer that border is. So even though Florida is bordered by both the Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico, they probably consider it a Gulf Coast state because more of its coast is on the Gulf of Mexico. Okay, then we have the inland South states. What are the inland South states? Victoria. Tennessee. Arkansas. Kentucky. West Virginia. So, what? Okay. So we have 4 inland South states. Why do you think they're called the inland South states? Mason?
Because they're bordered by the other states, not by the ocean.
Because they're inland. When a place is not really near any water, like these inland South states, we call them inland. So remember, the coast is along the border. It's bordered by the ocean or a large body of water like the Gulf of Mexico. But inland means it's really not close to an ocean or a gulf or something like that. Okay, then we see dark green represents what? Dark green represents what? Lena?
National Park.
National parks. Are there any national parks in the southeastern states?
Yes.
Yes. Lena, name one.
Everglades National Park.
Everglades National Park. There's more than that. What's another one? Zari? Make sure you have an answer before you. What is it?
What were you saying?
Make sure you have an answer before you tell me. What's another national park? Lena told us Everglades. There's several more. What's another one?
Great Smoky Mountains National Park.
Great Smoky Mountains National Park. A lot of you may have been to that national park. What's another one? There's quite a few. Zadie.
Hot Springs National Park.
Hot Springs National Park. What state is that in?
That's in Arkansas.
Arkansas. Some of you may have been there as well. Carla? Mammoth.
Mammoth Cave National Park.
Mammoth Cave National Park. What state is that in?
Kentucky.
Kentucky, that's actually closer than the Smoky Mountains. So if you want a close national park to go to, Mammoth Cave is about 5 hours away. Maybe not even, maybe more like 4. Aaron? Shannon. Just read the whole thing though. That's the beginning though. Shannon, start. It's Shenandoah. Shenandoah National Park. What state is that in? No, that's the group of states it in, but what state is it in? Colin? Virginia. Which is part of the Atlantic Coast states, but it's in the state of Virginia. And there's one more. Victoria, did you tell me one already? Or did you answer a question recently?
I answered it inland.
Okay, so yes. What's the last one? Mm-hmm.
The Tortugas National Park.
Dry Tortugas National Park. In your Spanish class, have you learned about tortugas?
No.
Well, they're turtles. Tortugas are turtles. So we have 5 national parks in the southeastern United States, and we've actually just gained another one, like this year, 2021. And I've been there a million times, and it's so exciting that it's a national park now. New River Gorge National Park is a brand new national park in West Virginia. And we actually have a couple others that aren't as new, but are newer than this book. There's one in South Carolina called, I think it's Congaree National Park. I think that might be it. I think that's it for the new ones. But there are quite a few new ones. There's 2 brand new ones. One is brand new. So even if we had gotten a brand new textbook written in 2020, it would already be wrong because it just got admitted to the national park system like 2 months ago. And then Congaree National Park, which is a few years old. Yes?
What state is thing about the National Forest?
Dry Tortugas. It's off of the Florida Keys, so it's part of Florida. It's way down, like find Everglades at the bottom of Florida, and then look over at the square. Now hold on really quick. Look at Mammoth Cave, Hot Springs, and Dry Tortugas National Parks. They're little squares instead of a big section of green like the Everglades, the Smoky Mountains, and Shenandoah National Park. That's because they're small. They're just small little national parks that have something special enough about them to be called a national park, but they're very little. So they're so small that they couldn't do a section of green, otherwise you wouldn't be able to see it. So they just have that square saying it's right about here. There are several national parks you could go to. Hot Springs is only about 3 hours, maybe about 2.5. Mammoth Cave is only about 4 to 5. And then Great Smoky Mountains are about 6. And I think 4th graders get free admission, and their families. So make sure you go this summer, if you have time. Yes, Cullen, quickly. Cullen, Zari, Smith, then we're going to move on.
There's one in North Carolina that I went with my aunt, but I don't remember what it's called.
It might not be a national park. It might be a national forest or something. Was it by any chance Mount Pisgah? Because I know that's a national forest in North Carolina, because I went there once.
It was.
That's a national forest. Maybe one day it'll be a national park, but for now it's just a national forest. Yes?
I went to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park
Mm-hmm.
last summer, and they just opened up this new thing up in the mountains, and it's called Anakista.
Oh, very cool. Yes, national parks are very, very cool. One of my life goals is to go to all of them. But they add new ones like every few years. So it's an ongoing. So even if I think I've been to all of them, well, if I wait a year or 2, there's probably going to be another one for me to go to. Yes, Smith.
When I was in the Great Smoky Mountains.
Oh, I'm sorry. Zari got to go next. Sorry, Zari. Then Smith.
It looks like someone was drawing pictures in this book.
Okay, well, just try to erase them as best you can. If it's over top of stuff that's already there, don't erase it because then it erases the ink behind it. But if you can, try to erase it. Okay, Smith, yes.
When I was in the Great Smoky Mountains when I was like 5, there was a bear that came onto our porch and then attacked our trash can to get our leftover ribs from the night before.
Bears are something that you encounter quite a bit, not only in national parks, but in national forests and things like that. Okay, hold on. Next, we have national forests. National forests are indicated by what? Smith?
Like a speckly green.
A speckly green. So let's find some national forests. Wow. There are a lot of them in the southeast. Some of them don't even have names written here, but they do have names. There's just so many of them that they can't fit all the names. Why do you think the southeast has so many national forests? Zari?
Maybe because there's more green land and water.
Very good. Because there's more flat green land. Ethan, please sit up. You're not paying attention to the thing we're saying. So if I asked you, what did Zari just say? What are we talking about right now? What are we looking for on our map? Would you be able to tell us? What are we looking for on our map then? I think the maybe means if you guessed right, which is not a guess. Is a guess a right answer? Even if you guess and it ends up being right, is that actually a right answer? Like, do you know how to do it again? Do you know how to make the right answer come out again if you just guess? No. So yes, Zari is right. We know the southeast is very flat. There's also a lot of water running. What do we have a lot of because of how fertile our soil is? What do we have a lot of around here and the rest of the south? Kingston?
Rivers.
Not rivers. It helps to make our soil fertile, but because, please sit up. You are not at home on the couch. Scoot your chair in. I've already asked you once, and you're doing the same exact thing. Sit up straight, scoot your chair in, all the way. Do you notice how everybody else is sitting like they're at school, and the two of you are sitting like you're at home on the couch? Because our soil is very wet, it's not rocky, and we get a lot of sun because there's not big mountains and things blocking, what do we have a lot of in the southeast? Lena?
Water. We have a lot of land.
You're telling me things I've already said. Because we have a lot of rivers making our soil wet, it's very flat, and because we don't have a lot of rocky mountains, what do we have a lot of in the southeast?
Forests.
What?
Forests.
That's not the plural, forests.
Forests.
But again, our soil is fertile. Our soil is wet. There's lots of sun because we don't have big mountains in the way. It's not rocky. There's water running here and there through rivers and things like that. Zari?
Land.
We have lots of flat land is what I said. Zadie?
Lots of plants.
But specifically,
Forests.
no. They can't do this up in the north because it's too rocky. There's not enough space.
Because we have a lot of trees.
Not trees. Like 3 people have said forests. Farms. We don't have a lot of farms. If you drive to Nashville, you don't see basically nothing but farms for field after field, and then there's a little town, and then there's more farms and farms and farms, and then there's another little town, and then there's more farms. Lots of farms. Listen to what I said. Lots of flat land. Lots of water running through. No mountains, so the soil is not rocky. No big mountains blocking the sun. What needs lots of land, water, and sun? Aaron?
Farm.
Plants. Where do we grow plants for things that we need? On farms. Listen to the question. Use prior knowledge. Draw conclusions. Yes, quickly. Okay. Then we have a star with a circle around it. What does that represent? Michaela?
National capital.
The national capital. Find the national capital. You can't actually see it because it's covered up by something. What is the national capital? Zari. Everyone should have their hand up. What is the capital of the United States, Zari?
Washington, D.C.
Washington, D.C. Everybody should have their hand up. If you do not, there's an issue there. We can't see it because it's covered up by a little bubble, a little yellow dot coming off of a bubble. But even without finding that circle with the star, we should know what the national capital is. Class, what is the national capital?
Washington, D.C.
Washington, D.C. Make sure you don't say Washington because Washington is a state in the Northwest. Washington, D.C. is the capital of the United States. Where is it? What region is Washington, D.C. in? What region? I see a lot of you looking at the key. The key is not going to tell you because I'm asking what region, not what group of states. What region is Washington, D.C. in? Carla?
Maryland.
Nope. Smith?
The southeast.
The Southeast. Come on. I shouldn't have to review the meaning of region every chapter. That was chapter 1 and chapter 2. We have been done with that. I can't review each chapter, otherwise we would just be doing chapter 1 every quarter. Do you want to do chapter 1 every quarter? Then you need to listen so that we can get to chapter 2 or chapter 3 or chapter 6 where we should be now. Washington, D.C. is in the southeast. I asked for a region, not a state, not a group of states. So I wasn't asking for kind of in Maryland or Virginia. I wasn't asking for the Atlantic coast states. I was asking for the southeast. This group of southern states is referred to as the southeast region. So we get the state, the capital of the country in our region. Now, the stars by themselves with no circles represent what? Mason.
State capital.
State capitals. What is the capital of Arkansas? Lena.
Little Rock.
Little Rock. What is the capital of Louisiana? Victoria. Should already be ready. You should be finding state capitals for all of them. That means if you're not being chosen right now, you should be looking at other states.
I found it. When I
Try your best. Baton Rouge. Close. I just wanted you to try. Baton Rouge, it's French. So you're not supposed to be able to say it by using English phonics clues. Some of them are, like we know O-U-G-E, which sound like J. But Baton Rouge. Michaela, what's the capital of Mississippi?
Jackson.
Jackson. Carla, what's the capital of Tennessee?
Nashville.
Nashville. Smith, what's the capital of Kentucky?
Frankfort.
Frankfurt. Cullen, what's the capital of Alabama? Montgomery. You're adding a lot of syllables and letters where there are none. Montgomery. Aaron, what's the capital of Florida? If you found it, then try it so that we know that you're not looking and I don't call on somebody else. Have you found it? How do you know it's the state capital? So look at all the cities in Florida and find the one with the star. Make sure you look on both sides. Florida goes on both sides of the binding. Tallahassee. Mason, what's the capital of South Carolina? I'm sorry, Georgia is what I meant. What's the capital of Georgia? Atlanta. Kingston, what's the capital of South Carolina? Columbia. Zadie, what's the capital of North Carolina? Okay, you can't see it, so that means it's either, you can't see the the star. So that would have to mean it's either what or what. There's two options it could be. Michaela, which two cities in North Carolina can you not see the dot for? So you can't tell if it's a star or just a circle. I can't hear you. Durham and no, Great Dismal Swamp is a swamp. Do you notice how it's not written like the other cities? It's like darker in italics. There are two cities that you can't see because they're blocked. Durham and Zadie. Can you find the other one? You need to try it, otherwise I'm going to think you haven't found it. Use phonics rules. Carla? Lena?
Wilson, Salem, Elm.
No, you can see a dot or a star for that. Cullen?
Charleston.
Charleston? Charleston isn't in North Carolina. Look right by Durham. Smith? Raleigh. It's right next to Durham. It's right below it. Can you see a dot for it? No. Raleigh is the capital of North Carolina. I was asking, which two cities can you not see a dot for? It's because this little bubble is blocking it. It's Durham, which somebody told me, but then instead of looking right by Durham, because there is another word right there, people were like just guessing all over. Somebody guessed Winston-Salem, which has a dot. Somebody guessed Charleston, which isn't even in Virginia and also has a dot. Raleigh is the capital. What about Virginia? Zari.
Richmond.
Richmond. What about West Virginia? Cullen.
Charleston.
Charleston. Okay. What do the triangles mean? Zari.
Major cities.
Nope. Please, you just guessed, Zari, so what just happened is you guessed what I was going to ask next instead of listening to my question. I said, what do the triangles mean? Lena.
Mountain Peak.
Mountain peaks. Where do you see a mountain peak? Do you think you're going to see any mountain peaks in Florida? Find a mountain peak. Tell me what it is, and then tell me its elevation. Remember, its elevation means how tall is it? Zadie.
Stone Mountain. 1,686 feet.
Stone Mountain, which is 1,686 feet, and it is in what state?
It is in Georgia.
It's in Georgia, near what city?
It's near Atlanta.
It's near Atlanta. Does anybody see another one? Victoria?
Mountain Mitchell.
Mount Mitchell.
Mountain Mitchell.
Not Mountain Mitchell, Mount Mitchell. MT means mount, not mountain. It is a mountain, but MT is an abbreviation for mount.
Mount Mitchell. 6,684 feet.
And where is Mount Mitchell?
It is in North Carolina.
North Carolina. Now we also see something that we haven't really seen, we never saw in the Northeast. We see that green kind of polka dotted pattern. The green polka dotted pattern indicates what? Kingston? Swamps. Where do we see a swamp?
Big cypress swamp.
Big cypress swamp. Where?
Florida.
In Florida. Is that the only one we see? Carla?
No.
Where else do we see a swamp?
Big cypress swamp.
That's what Kingston literally just said. Where else do we see a swamp? Listen when other people answer questions so that you don't say the same thing and end up sounding silly. Zari, where's another swamp?
Another swamp is Great Dismal Swamp.
The Great Dismal Swamp, or Dismal Swamp, where?
North Carolina.
Near the border of what state?
Virginia.
Virginia. So right near the North Carolina-Virginia border, we see the Great Dismal Swamp. All of these swamps are very close to what? Carla?
The ocean.
The ocean. Very large bodies of water, because remember, swamps are marshy, wet lowlands. So it's very low. That means does not have a high elevation, which means if the area floods, it gets a lot more water, and that water tends to stay. Okay, let's see. Well, we can go ahead and start, because we have like 15 minutes. So we can go ahead and start reading for today. Go ahead and turn the page to page 176. Page 176. You're on page 176. Yes.
I didn't know Miami was in Florida.
Yep, that's where I was born. Kingston, please read. 176. I saw you at it a minute ago, so I don't know why you started turning pages again. Read. Louder. Read the title first. Yes, thank you.
Geography of the Southeast. You are there. You can hardly believe you're riding a bike through a swamp. The dirt road is mostly dry, but water is all around you. Tall trees block the sunlight. Frogs croak and birds make strange calling sounds that strange sounding calls. The tour guide points out a big snake sleeping on a log nearby. Deer, foxes, and bears live in trees, he says. You're touring the Great Dismal Swamp on the border between Virginia and North Carolina. It's part of the long coastal plain found in the southeast.
Okay. Hold on one second. Okay, so talking about swamps, look at the picture on the top of page 177. What swamp do we see?
Coastal wildlife.
Nope. It's not a swamp. It's not the name of the swamp. Zadie?
Great Dismal.
Nope. Carla? Just try it. Try it. You're doing as well as can be expected. It's a Native American word.
Swamp.
The Okefenokee Swamp. How did you know that, Carla?
Because
Have you been there before and you recognize this?
no,
How do you know?
because there is something underneath the photo saying instructions. Swamp such as Okefenokee Swamp has a wild variety of life.
What is that called? The words underneath a picture? Not a photo. This is a drawing or a painting. But what is that called when there are words underneath a picture that tell you what that picture is of? Cullen?
A caption.
A caption. So instead of just looking at the picture and guessing or finding the most obvious, what should you always do whenever you're trying to figure out what a picture is of? Smith?
Look at the caption.
Look at the caption, because that's probably where the answer is going to be. So instead of just guessing based on that word coastal wildlife, which is just the picture showing an example of, or guessing Great Dismal Swamp because Kingston just read it, look at the caption first so that you don't sound silly. We see all different kinds of wildlife in this swamp. We see a sunfish. Find the number 1. There's a sunfish. There's a fish. Now we see a bird, a wood duck. Find number 2. Now we see a plant. Find number 3, the cypress tree. And now number 4, we're back to birds, a great blue heron. And another bird, number 5, a great egret. And then number 6, a mammal, an opossum. And then a reptile, number 7, a red-bellied turtle. And another reptile, number 8, an alligator. So we see all different types of living things. We see plants, we see fish, we see birds, we see mammals, and we see reptiles. Do you think there's only trees there? Do you think there's also things from like the bacteria kingdom and the fungi kingdom? Definitely. If we have water, there's bacteria in it. If we have plants, there's fungi in it somewhere. Okay. Now I projected, I know it's not great, but this map is that map back there, which we would normally look at. But in order for Zari to see, I know it's not the best color because of the lights being on and the computer. It's just not good, but we're just gonna have to do our best. You can kind of see the general area. We see the southeast right here. Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Arkansas. So we're going to be focusing on these states as we read about the geography on page 177. Aaron, please read first. A little louder. Yeah.
The southeast has 2 long coastal lines.
Not coastal lines, but just
Coastal lines. The Atlantic Ocean forms its eastern boundary.
we see that here. The eastern boundary of the southeast states is the Atlantic Ocean. Remember? North, look at where my pointer is pointing. North, east, south, west. So the eastern border of the southeastern states is the Atlantic Ocean. Keep going.
The Gulf of Mexico forms its southern border.
So we know south is down here, and along the southern border, we have the Gulf of Mexico. Keep going, Aaron.
The coastal plain. The flat coastal plain covers more than half of the southeast. In fact, the plain makes up the entire Florida plain.
It's spelled exactly as it sounds, except that U makes the oo sound. Peninsula. You're so close. Peninsula. Peninsula. Good. Peninsula. Now pause, because really quick I want to talk about, I want to review the coastal plain. Remember, the coastal plain is the flat area of land from the coast, and then it spreads west until you hit the Appalachian Mountains. So the coastal plain starts along the Atlantic Ocean and then heads west and stops at the Appalachian Mountains. So all of this is the coastal plain. Remember when we talked about the Northeast, we talked about how the coastal plain was very narrow because the mountains start almost immediately after the coast. But because the Appalachian Mountains run diagonally like this, it gets bigger and bigger the farther south you go. Do the Appalachian Mountains, which end right about here, touch Florida at all? So Florida is entirely part of the coastal plain. It is the only state to be entirely part of the coastal plain because look, even South Carolina is a little bit in the Appalachian Mountains. Just a little, like right here. Same with Georgia, just the top. Keep going.
A peninsula is land that is almost surrounded by land.
So, I'm going to write it and then I'm going to erase it. So make sure that you're writing quickly. Number 1 is what word, Erin?
Peninsula.
Peninsula. Peninsula. A good spelling strategy is to say the syllables, spell the syllable as you go. Peninsula, peninsula. And what is a peninsula?
Land that is almost surrounded by land.
Land that is almost surrounded by water. And we can see that's definitely true of of Florida, sorry. Because if we look at Florida, we have this part of the coast that's surrounded by water, this part of the state that's surrounded by water, this part of the state that's surrounded by water, and just this part that is not. So a peninsula is land that is surrounded by water, that is almost surrounded by water. You see how Florida is surrounded on 1, 2, 3 sides by water and only one side by land. When we see a peninsula, it's usually land that's sticking off. Do you see how Florida is sticking off of the rest of the United States? So we know it's a peninsula. Okay, I'll leave it up for a minute, and then when I need the map again, I'll erase it. Erin, keep going.
Parts of the southeast coast have wetlands. A wetland is an area of low land that is partly covered with slow moving or still water.
So we have a long definition. What's our next word, Erin?
Wetland.
Wetland. And what is a wetland?
An area of low land that is partly covered with slow moving or still water.
An area of low land, that means it's low. Remember we talked about the elevation map? So low land would be like right around 0 above sea level, if not right below sea level. So an area of low land that is what, Erin?
That is partly covered with slow moving or still water.
That is partly covered with slow moving or still water. Now the southeast, especially the southern parts of the southeast, do have a lot of these wetlands because if the mountains are running like this, well, all of this area is very flat. all of this area is very flat. So it's either right at sea level or just barely above or below sea level. What else do we know we get a lot of down here? What type of weather do we get a lot of down here in Florida? Mason? Rain. What happens in a low, flat area when it rains a lot?
It catches water.
It keeps the water. It holds the water in. So what is that called? A flood. So if an area constantly floods, can people live there? Do they build roads or houses or businesses in an area where it constantly floods? No, so they leave it natural, these swamps, because you can't build anything in a swamp. It's covered by water most of the time. Would you want a house where you're constantly having to dump out the water? No. So that's why we have swamps. There are these very low areas of land in very rainy areas that constantly stay flooded. So they leave it to the animals and the plants. Yes?
But sometimes in like North Carolina, they build like really tall houses.
Mm-hmm. And that can happen. But do you think everybody wants to live that way? And can we have a grocery store like that? Like, think of those tall houses. If you've ever been to the beach, you might see them right along the coast. And like they'll have garages underneath. And then the house is like up on stilts almost. Would it be smart to have a big giant grocery store like that? Or a gas station? Or a clothing store? No. So sometimes you can go to these swampy areas and see tall houses, but usually it's just somebody who wants to live there, or maybe it's a ranger station if you're in a state forest or a national forest or a national park, where they just need to keep an eye on things. But for the most part, swamps don't have really people living there. They are left for the animals and the plants, which is what we need, like in this picture on the top of page 177. Okay, Aaron, finish out the paragraph. We're going to finish this page, so let's go. Let's be ready to do it, and then we'll pack up.
In some wetlands, only short plains grow.
Not plains.
Only short plants grow. These wetlands are called marshes.
So keep that in mind. Let's add a little thing. It's not a new word, but it's so that we know, because there will be a question on your test. What's the difference between marshes and another thing? A marsh is a wetland. With only short plants. So a marsh is a wetland, this area of low land that is partly covered with slow-moving or still water, but it only grows short plants. Aaron, when you're done, keep going. Wait a second. Yes.
They cover large coastal areas of Maryland, Virginia, and Maryland.
That's part of a state name.
Carolina.
Carolinas. So, these northern coastal plain areas have a lot of these marshes, these flat, low land. Now, you might be too young, but I bet some of you, who has watched Dawson's Creek on Netflix? None of you. Okay. I thought maybe, especially those of you with older siblings, but never mind. Because if you see it, if you watch it, it takes place in the marshes down in here. Because there's not a lot of trees. When you see them on the water, or if you've ever seen the movie The Notebook, and they're out in the water, you see a lot of like grass in the water. Those are marshes. They don't really have the tall trees like in this picture up here. So these northern coastal plain areas are mostly marshes with the short grasses and plants. Yes?
There's a lot of that. There's a lot of marshes on Tybee Island.
Yes, which is off of the coast of South Carolina, which it says that the marshes cover large coastal areas of the Carolinas. So yes, if you've ever been to Tybee Island or Hilton Head or Savannah, Georgia, you'll see some marshes. Okay, read next. Victoria. So, pause. We have another type of wetland. A swamp. What's the difference? Well, a marsh is a wetland with only short plants. A swamp is a wetland with bushes and tall trees. So this picture up at the top of page 177, do you think it's a marsh or a swamp? Carla? A what?
A swamp.
A swamp. Now look at the picture on the bottom of page 76. Do you think that that is a marsh or a swamp? It's not covered with water, but parts of the year it definitely is, and you can see. Zadie? Marsh, because it's got those short plants. You can see those tall grasses between the water and the lighthouse. That's what you see a lot of in marshes, those tall yellowy grasses. Okay, finish out the page. Whoever's reading, Victoria.
One of the largest swamps in the United States is Okefenokee.
So try to put it all together, smooth it out.
Okefenokee.
Okefenokee.
Is
Okefenokee. Okefenokee. Oka, not Ofa. Oka. Fanoka. Okefenokee. Okefenokee.
Okefenokee Swamp. It lies in parts of southern Georgia and northern Florida.
So, the Okefenokee Swamp, or Okefenokee, sorry, it's near where I used to live, and we called it Okefenokee, but is around here. Southern Georgia, northern Florida. That's where the Okefenokee Swamp is. Keep going.
The Everglades in southern Florida are marshes.
Not orange. Slow down.
Not Martian.
No,
Marshes.
start again. You read one word wrong, so I think it's throwing your brain off. You just read a word incorrectly. So start with the Everglades.
The Everglades in southern Florida has
Not Martians, but there you go.
marshes and swamps. This wetland covers more than 1 million.
You'll get used to those teeth being gone really soon. And then as soon as you get used to it, then they'll come back. And then you'll have to get used to it again. Unfortunately, that's how teeth are at this age. So then we have the Everglades, which not only has swamps like most of this southern area, but also has marshes, and it's way down here. It is a massive, massive, massive national park. It covers over 1 million acres. That means more than 1 million acres. 1 acre is like the size of like our room, 3rd grade, like from this window to the window in 3rd grade, from the emergency doors down to the stairwell. That's 1 acre. About. That's probably less than an acre, but close to an acre. There's over 1 million of those, like next to each other. So it's really, really big. How are all wetlands in the southeast alike? How are all wetlands in the southeast alike? Smith?
They all have plants.
They all have plants. Carla?
They all have water on top of land.
So they're all partly covered by water. So there's 2 ways they're alike. They all have plants. They're all partly covered by water. And there's one more thing that's the same about all wetlands. No matter where they are. Lena?
You have animals?
Well, they all have animals, but there's something else I'm looking for. Zari?
They're all wetlands.
No, that's, you can't use the word. Colin?
They all have marshes.
Nope. Marshes is a marsh is a type of wetland. It's not what they all are, because our swamps marshes. So is that how all wetlands are alike? They are all partly covered with water. They all have some kind of plant. Some are short, some are tall. What's another thing? Are they up in the mountains? Where are they? How do we describe them? Smith?
They're on flat, low land.
They're all on flat, low land. When you're looking for how something is alike, look at the definition. That can tell you at least one, two things, and then we know there's two different types of wetlands, but they're both the same because they have plants. Marshes are just short, swamps are just taller. Okay, we'll finish this lesson tomorrow. Go ahead and close your book, clear your desk, get out your planner. Yes.